Good evening, friends. Let me chant something before giving the talk. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. May all be happy. May all be free from disease. May all see only goodness everywhere. Let no one be subject to misery. May the blessings of God bring peace everywhere. Peace, peace, peace. So friends, the subject of my talk this evening is chanting the holy name and its utility. Holy name is God's name. Sri Ramakrishna was recognized by many in the 20th century, 19th century as a divine incarnation. And many thought he was a saint, so they would come to Sri Ramakrishna and would seek his spiritual advice. So one person came to Sri Ramakrishna one day and asked him, "Revered sir, what is the goal of our life?" And Sri Ramakrishna said, "The goal of human life is to experience God." Then that person asked, "How to experience that?" Then Sri Ramakrishna said, "You should chant the holy name of God and have holy company. If you can do that, then you will eventually experience God." Now, one may ask, how chanting the holy name will enable a person to experience God? Well, the answer is that our mind is the repository of all our thoughts. All the thoughts that we think, they get stored up in the mind. And some of those thoughts can be pulled out of the mind later on. That is called remembering. For example, a person most probably drank a cup of tea in the morning, and that thought of drinking a cup of tea is stored up in that person's mind. But he drank that cup of tea in the morning. Then in the evening, somebody asks him, what did you have for breakfast? Then he said, "Well, I drank a cup of tea in the morning only." How could he do it? That thought of drinking tea was inside his mind. He pulled it up, and that is called remembering things. And the mind is vast, and millions of thoughts have accumulated there. And very ancient thoughts, upon them many layers of relatively newer thoughts have gone and accumulated. So, and not all thoughts are good thoughts that we think. The thought of God is a good thought. In some homes in this country, you will see this writing framed and hung from the wall. God is good. God is good. What is goodness? The other day I talked about that. Goodness is unselfishness. A good husband is one who makes willing and loving self-sacrifice for his wife. So also is a good wife. A good wife is she who willingly and lovingly makes self-sacrifice for her husband. If they don't make self-sacrifice for each other, then that is not a good marriage. A good friend is he who makes willing and loving self-sacrifice. So also a good parent is one who makes self-sacrifice for their children. So God is unselfishness itself. But the worldly thoughts are selfish thoughts. We had a Swami, a brother monk who worked in this country for a few years. We used to call him Vishnu Maharaj. His monastic name was Asaktananda, Swami Asaktananda. He would talk about all these worldly thoughts which are stored up in people's minds. He would talk about them and would say that they are garbage. So we fill our minds with garbage. That's why our minds are not pure. Mind which is pure is only filled with divine thoughts, the thoughts of God. And according to that accumulated thoughts, the nature of a person is there. A person who has many good thoughts accumulated in his or her mind, that person's nature will be good. And a person whose mind is filled with bad thoughts, that person will become bad. That's why Swami Asaktananda used to call the bad thoughts garbage. We should not fill our minds with garbage. We should fill our minds with holy thoughts of God. And these holy thoughts should eventually outnumber the other thoughts which are there accumulated in the mind. That means one has to chant the holy name millions of times. Then that may happen. I saw some people who by chanting the holy name of God, which they had got from their spiritual teacher. And such holy name of God is called a mantra. Their nature changes. I used to be in India in a center which is in the city of Shillong. And one of our next door neighbors was one gentleman, Mr. Mukherjee. he used to come to the center. The center is a temple, and he used to come to the temple. He was just like any other person. He had some pettinesses also, as many people have. Then he had spiritual initiation from one saintly Swami of our order who visited the Shillong center. After that, he started chanting the holy name. Then eventually, from Shillong center, I was transferred to the headquarters of the Ramakrishna order, which is near Calcutta, called Belur Math. There I was for 12 years. And then I was transferred to Seattle. So after I had come to Seattle, once I got to visit India, and when I was in Belur Math, our headquarters, then one Swami who knew me very well, whom I respected highly, yes, his name was Swami Krishnatmananda. He was sort of truthfulness personified. His life was wonderful. So he happened to visit Belur Math at that time. And he saw me, and he was very happy to see me. And he said, I am going to see Mr. Mukherjee today. I have got a car from someone. He lives in Calcutta nowadays. So you also know him, so why don't you come with me? So I agreed and went to Mr. Mukherjee's home in Calcutta. Mr. Mukherjee was practically all alone there. There was a servant or cook who would take care of his food, etc. Other than that, there was no one else there. His wife was a very good wife. She had died. And Mr. Mukherjee said that while dying, she was chanting the holy name of God. It was a good death, really. And then he insisted on her staying with him for some time. So we stayed there for at least 1 hour or more. And during that period, he only talked about God. Nothing worldly. He was a transformed person. The Mr. Mukherjee, whom I knew when he used to be in the city of Shillong many years ago, it was not that Mukherjee. It was completely different. He didn't talk about any worldly things, only about God, Sri Ramakrishna, and others. So that's what happens when a person has chanted the holy name many, many times, a few million times, and then this transformation comes to the mind. And a mind which is filled with holy thoughts, that mind is called a pure mind. Even Jesus Christ, who is a divine incarnation, he gave different teachings to those who would come to him. According to their mental levels, he would give the teachings. When some people would come whose mental levels were not that high, Jesus would ask them to pray to God and looking upon God as someone who lives in heaven and all these things, and that prayer to God. And then those who are more evolved, to him he would give different advice. He would say, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Because those whose minds are pure, they will experience God. How that mind becomes pure? Through incessant prayer. thinking of God again and again and again, millions of times. And that the last teaching that he gives, highest teaching, that is, be ye perfect as the Father in heaven is perfect. That is, be like God, divinity. You manifest your divinity. And when he says that, he echoes what we have in our ancient Hindu scriptures. In our scriptures, there are some sentences which are called Mohabbakas, great sentences. And what are they? Tattamasi, you are divinity. Aham Brahmasmi, I am divinity. Sarvam Khalidam Brahma, everything is divinity. I am Atma Brahma, that what you consider as the soul, that is also divinity. These are called Mohabbakas, great sentences. If these sentences are saved, the rest of the voluminous teachings that are there in Hindu scriptures, if the rest of them is lost, still we can say that Hinduism has been saved. And Jesus taught exactly what Sri Ramakrishna would teach, or any other Hindu real divine incarnation should teach. Because Sri Ramakrishna used to say in Bengali, "Shop shealer ekra." That is, all the jackals howl in the same way in every country. No matter to which country the jackal is, but some jackals or foxes may be grey, some may be brown, but outwardly, but they all howl in the same way. That's why all these great teachers teach the same truth, Sri Ramakrishna said. And one of the favorite sentences which Sri Ramakrishna would often speak, that is, Naham Naham Tuhu Tuhu. Not I, but thou. It is not I, but you are everything, God. God, you are everything. Not I means I don't have that false ego. That ego is divinity. What's wrong with the ego? Well, I have often explained that. That is, the owner and the object owned cannot be the same. So if I own a car, as the owner I have to be different from it. If I own a house, as the owner I have to be different from that house. Similarly, I own this body. So I am the owner of this body, therefore I am different from my body. I am also different from my sense organs. The organ of sight, organ of hearing, organ of smell, organ of taste, and organ of touch. These are sense organs. So I own them, therefore I cannot be those sense organs. In the same way I cannot be my motor organs. My organ of speech, the organ with the help of which I grab things, that is my hand. The organ with the help of which I move about, that is my feet. And the organ by which all the digested food goes out of my body. That is the anus, that organ. And the organ which is used by people to reproduce children or to urinate, these organs are called motor organs. So I will know that I am neither my sense organs nor am I my motor organs. I am different from them as the owner. But what about my mind? I own my mind. I cannot be my mind then as the owner. But something has happened there. The idea of my individual existence is a thought of my conscious mind. And that thought is I, which is the ego. As the owner, I am different from that I. See if I can really become different from my ego, then I am divinity. God does not have an ego. I am divinity itself. All egos are like so many waves in the infinite ocean of divinity. And if the egos disappear, waves disappear, only the ocean remains. Therefore, the teaching in Hinduism is that you should get rid of your ego. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, not I, but thou, O God, your divinity. All saintly souls are free from egoism. They don't have ego. Even they don't have any identification with their bodies or minds. A picture of Sri Ramakrishna was taken by a photographer at the request of his admirers. And the picture could be taken only when he was communing with God and he was totally unconscious of this world. And that state of communion is called samadhi in our language, communion with God. So this picture was taken at the time. Later on, a copy of that was given to Sri Sarada Devi, the spiritual consort of Sri Ramakrishna. Sarada Devi is also a divine incarnation. She was given, and she showed that picture to Ramakrishna. By seeing that picture, Ramakrishna took a flower and put that flower in front of that picture, as though he is worshipping that. Then the Sri Sarada Devi said, "What are you doing?" Then he said, "Whose picture is this?" It looks like the picture of a great yogi, great saint. He didn't even know that was his picture. And the Sarada Devi was sort of a little embarrassed. Then Sri Ramakrishna, as though to console her, said, "Don't worry, a day will come when this picture will be adoring many, many homes." Which is true. When I was a young boy, in our shrine his picture was there. That was some more than 80 years ago. And I saw some city buses in Calcutta, and in them the picture of Sri Ramakrishna. is there. This is Bengal. So, Sri Ramakrishna did not have any ego. And they don't, all the saintly souls, they don't have any ego at all, and they're all humble. They are humility personified. And also, what is a pure mind? The mind is the product of Mother Nature called Prakriti. Mother Nature is matter. And that Mother Nature is composed of three substances, so to say, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Sattva, these are all, each of them is called a guna. The guna, this is a Sanskrit word, it has one meaning, it is a rope. As the three strings have been wound together to create Mother Nature. And we all, the entire universe is an evolved product of Mother Nature. So we also have these three gunas in us. And these three gunas have different characteristics. This Sattva guna, Rajoguna and Tamaguna, these three gunas are there. As I told you, that they are like three siblings always wrestling with one another, and each one wants to go to the top. That's why you see minds which are composed of these three gunas, there also you can see that a person is sometimes very calm and serene and peaceful. At another time, restless, ambitious, and still at another time sleepy, because calmness, serenity, these calmness, serenity and all these qualities, they are present in Sattva guna. When Sattva guna becomes preponderant, then those characteristics are manifested. You go to a saint and you will see he is so calm and peaceful because his Sattva guna is preponderant. The other gunas are subdued. But another person is restless and ambitious and wants to gain worldly positions and all. In that person's mind, it looks like most of the time this Rajoguna is preponderant. And then there are some who are sort of dull-witted and everything. Most of the time they are dull-witted, they are sleepy. So in them, the Tamaguna is preponderant. So a pure mind is a mind where there is preponderance of Sattva guna. So by chanting the holy name of God, this Sattva guna becomes preponderant in the mind. And that is a peaceful mind, pure mind. It is this pure mind which enables a person to get rid of his or her ego completely. And at that time, divinity becomes manifested. And that is our goal. We all are divinity, whether we know it or not. The same divinity. As long as we are identified with our body-mind complex, we think that we are different. That's why Sri Ramakrishna used to say to people, replace your I with thou, that means with God, God's name. so on, who will think of God's name or chant the holy name of God most of the time, millions and millions of times, that person will become eventually divinity. And that is our goal. That's why Sri Ramakrishna said to that person, the goal of human life is to experience divinity.